Joining me today on Premier Gospel is Niko MA. Thank you for your time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss with you was your new single, A Lo Mejor, with Funky. Can you tell us about how that collaboration came together and also just the meaning behind the song as well?
So the song is speaking about domestic abuse. It came out in October, so we were focusing on, at least here in the United States, I'm not sure if everywhere else in the world, it's October was the month of domestic abuse awareness. So we wanted to kind of bring that topic out and kind of bring light to that topic, specifically a lot of things that we were seeing, especially in the Latin community towards women and the abuse. We just wanted to make sure that we put our voice to it and our resources.
Amazing. So now I want to talk about your new album as well. So it will obviously TNT De Mello. Can you tell me why you chose that name?
So TNT stands for the Niko team. So we wanted to make sure that everybody that shares our music anywhere, it could be somebody who shows them our songs to their friend or somebody who's listening to our song while they're driving. Anybody who in one way or another helps us spread our music, and it's part of a Niko team. So I just wanted to make sure that I made an album for my people, for my team, for the people who support me, who supported me from the beginning, when nobody was listening, till now that, a few people are listening.
Amazing. And I believe you also self-produced and wrote the entire album.
Yeah.
I've
been producing and writing my own stuff for since I started. So One of the main reasons I started producing was because we were looking for producers around here, and the prices were outrageous. There was no way that a 15-year-old was gonna pay like $800 for one beat, and we were like, you know what, we got to learn how to do it.
Amazing. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that entire process for making this album? What is it like to self-produce and then also write, and having that kind of creative control as well, and freedom?
It's a blessing and a curse, because if I sit down in a room, like in a studio room or even in my basement by myself, I can write you 10 songs. But then when it comes to collaborating and getting together, I've never been able to exercise that muscle in a way, because I've been producing myself for so long. So then when I go into studios with other people, and then when they're collaborating and getting together, that takes a little bit more of a work. But for me, if I get in the studio in a week, I can get an album done. Because I just focus.
Is it kind of like, does it come in like spells, so like bursts of creative energy, or is it, I can imagine it being quite a heavy process.
There's about 4 months out of the year where like I'll just have like 20 songs every week, and then the rest of the year where it's like I'm just frustrated because nothing is coming out.
Wow. Yeah, I think everyone has their way though, so you just have to make the most of those moments, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah. There are times where I'm out and about and like inspiration hits, and I'm just like, nope, I gotta go home. If I don't catch it now,
it will leave you. That's incredible. That's so funny to me. So what are some of your favorite tracks on the album, and can you just tell us why?
Invencible, just track number 3, I believe. It's my top favorite song. Mostly because for so many years I dealt with suicidal thoughts, and this song speaks about I feel invincible because even death can't touch me. So it's a declaration of saying, you know what, I choose life. I choose to live, and I think it's an amazing song because, especially with the generation that we're in, depression, suicidal thoughts are such a big thing, and it's not really talked about because nobody wants to be open about it. So it's one of my favorites for that same reason.
Amazing. So I also want to talk about your, like, you obviously produced for other people as well, quite extensively. So what are the main differences between producing for yourself and producing for other people? And which is there one that you prefer over the other?
So when I produce for myself, actually I work the same way, because typically when I'm going to produce for somebody else, I present them an idea already written. And either they just say, hey, I like the beat, I don't like the lyrics, so I'm just going to take this beat and write my own thing to it. Or they say, I love the whole song, let me keep it that way. But regardless if I'm going to produce for somebody else or for myself, I sit down and just write the song. At the end of the song, then I choose, okay, does this sound like something? Does it sound like me or somebody else could fit better in it? It's a humbling experience, honestly, because you have to really set aside and be like, okay, this song is great, but somebody else could make it greater. And not a lot of people can just, admit this song would be better if I'm not in it.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about your heart posture though, and about being like what's the greater good, like what's the bigger impact that it could have.
Yeah.
So it's looking at the bigger picture. So obviously you are a successful and acclaimed producer, but I also wanted to know what was the decision and what was the kind of moment where you decided to step out as a solo artist and start your music ministry, your Christian music ministry? So can you tell us a little bit about that moment in your life, and also just a little bit about your background and like how you started music?
So in 2005, I went to a reggaeton concert for the first time. My brother took me to the reggaeton concert. I didn't even want to go because I wasn't really a fan of music. I was like, I'm gonna get bored. Like, I ended up. Yeah, I mean, 2005. I was born in '92, so I was like 13 years old. I'm like, there's a million other things I'd rather do than sit here in a reggaeton concert. But then I remember like the event starting, the energy in the room, like the music, the way it made me feel, and I like at the end of that concert, the only thing that I could think about is I don't know what the heck they just did, but whatever they did is what I want to do. And ever since, I just started. I started producing, but I've always been almost afraid of the spotlight. Like I'm not a fan of the spotlight. I don't like the attention on me. I don't like any of that. So then I was like, well, the way that I can do it and still remain kind of hidden is producing and just writing for other people. So I just started doing that, started doing it. And about 2018, I met Arias, which ended up being my manager for a long time. And he was pushing me. Because I was showing him the songs that I was pitching to artists. And then he was like, dog, you sound better than the artists themselves. And I was like, come on. Like, I know that he's trying to hype me up. And your friends hype you up. And then you're like, nah, just let it go. And he was like, just test it. Release one song. So I released the song Enough, which was my first song. And people loved it. And I was still hesitant. And it wasn't until I started getting the testimonies of people, like testimonies of random kids just saying, hey, you know what? Like, I was really sad and your song helped. And then when I started seeing that it's more than just me trying to boost up my ego, that it was like my music was making an impact. I was like, okay, then it's more than just me. Like, I have to do something. So that's when I started. And when I started, and now I like to sing more than I like to produce. So
I also wanted to discuss this piano playing on your Instagram, because I mean, the worship though, do you think that's something that we can expect from you at some point? Or
so that started my church. I go to Creative Church here in Minneapolis. We have a great band, but they don't have original content. And me being a songwriter and a producer, I'm like, why don't we have original content? They're like, well, we don't have anybody to write it. And then I'm like, are you serious? That's the only reason. They're like, yes. And I'm like, all right, so let me get to work. But obviously, at that moment, I thought I'm biting a little bit more than I can chew, right? Because
Mm.
I've never produced or written worship. Um, then I just started, and then God took care of the rest. And I did a few worship songs that I'm just like, this could be something, you know. And then I showed it to my wife, showed it to a few people, and everybody was like really touched by them. So I'm like, okay, this really could be something. It's not just me saying, hey, I'm great. So it's definitely something that we can expect. I still don't know. It's so fresh that I still don't know in what capacity, but it's something that I'm definitely venturing into.
Amazing. Excited for that for you, and to hear it too. Um, and I also wanted to talk about bilingual music, because I know that you've released a little bit and you drop it in your songs here and there. So yeah, is that something that you are interested in pursuing more? Because I know there's a lot of artists that say, like, so like Evan Kraft, Sam Rivera also said, like, it's like you can double your impact and your reach. Even Angie Rose said that with
Mm-hmm.
like singing more Spanish songs, you can double your impact. So is that something that you want to do more of?
I do. I have a folder full of English songs. And my main concern, if I can just be fully transparent, my main concern is my accent. I'm always like, putting myself down because I'm like, well, the accent, like, can people really even understand me? Like, I don't know. So I have a folder full of English songs that I just haven't released, and I'm for some reason afraid to.
I would say do it. And happy here at Premier Gospel to be the platform to put it out for you. Um, yeah, that would be awesome. So excited for that as well, potentially. And I also now wanted to talk about your journey with your faith. Can you just tell us about the goodness of God in your life, and maybe share a story, a moment, or a testimony, and just where you've seen the hand of God in your life, just so that it might encourage some of our listeners?
Well, as a teen, I grew up. I grew up in a church, but it's unfair to say that I grew up having a relationship with God because I didn't. I just grew up in the church. As an outsider inside, I don't know if that makes any sense. It was more of like I went to church because my parents made me. I went to church because my friends were there. But right after church, I would go and be popping pills, or I would be, so it wasn't really like my relationship with God. I didn't even know how to pray. So um, I grew up that way. Then I ended up like just saying, you know what, I'm not even gonna try to fake it. I stayed away from going to church, and I started performing at clubs. And I got so depressed that because I was trying to fill in the spot that only God can fill, you know. And I was trying to fill it in with music, with drugs, with whatever I could, trying to see what could fill that spot. And then growing up in the church, I kind of knew that, like in the back of my head, you kind of know, like, that spot you're trying to fill it in, but it's not going to be able to. And then it got to a point where uh, I gave it a try. I tried having a relationship with God, and I feel like it wasn't until I was ready to actually have a relationship with God and actually try that my life was changed. Because at the end of the day, going into a building won't change your life, and I've realized that I can talk to God here just as much as I can talk to God in a coffee shop, just as much as I can talk to God in church. Um, so now I wouldn't go back, but as a teen, I really think I encourage people to more than just go to church. It's having a relationship with God, because now there's not a day that I don't want to go a day without God guiding me in my way, and my family and my kids. I see the blessings, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
Amazing. What are some of the ways that you stay connected to God with your faith?
Um, Serving is one way, and I know it sounds weird, but
No, I love
I've
hearing
noticed
stories about this. Yeah.
it's almost like the more you give, the more you get.
Mm.
Um, and that's everything in life, I've seen people try to be like, even with their time, like, I don't have enough time for me. Like, so I produce, I write, I homeschool my kids. I,
Wow.
like, there's just so much stuff that I do, and I feel like the more that I tell God, hey, I'm too busy, the more I feel myself like scrambling for time. And then the more that I tell that I dedicate
It's
my
so
time to God.
true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
more that I
true.
dedicate my time to God, the more that I find myself like having time to relax, having time to catch up on my shows on TV. So then it's like it's weird because the more you give, the more you get. We
Yeah.
all get the same 24 hours, right? And then you hear all these motivational speakers saying, we all get the same 24 hours and I'm doing more with mine than yours. But
Mhm.
it's really just in everything, the more you get, the more you give.
Yeah. It's
No,
like,
the more you give, the more you get.
yeah, it's like allocation of time. Like it's about like where are your priorities kind of thing, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
cool. So I also wanted to talk about your family life. So you're married, like you said, and you've got two kids, right?
Two
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, amazing. So can you tell us a little bit how that experience changed you and just how you kind of stay centered with Christ and walking with Christ in your family?
I think having a family, it's one of the main reasons, one of the main ways that God used to calm me down. Because after having kids, it's like you kind of start seeing life a little different. You start seeing like not so much what can I give them that I didn't have, but more like what can I teach them that I didn't know. So you start kind of thinking about like, okay, if I would have started serving God at their age, where would I be right now?
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I started really serving God at like 25, 26. So if I would have started at 5, could you imagine? You know what I mean? So not only with God, but also like with music or with encouraging them to like, what do they want to do? Like, not so much like what do they want to study, but what do they want to do in life? And then just encouraging that. Like my son, he's 5 years old and he is 100% convinced he's going to be in the NBA. So what do? We go outside in the cold and play basketball. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I don't go very often because I hate the cold, but he goes out. He goes out there
He
pretty like
goes.
almost every
You
day.
support.
Yes.
Going back to your music now, yeah, if you could collaborate with anyone, who would it be? Like, because you've already done a lot of amazing collaborations, but I always like to ask this question to people just to like put it out there.
There's one person I still, and I know I'm going to get to because that's how much God loves me. He's gonna make it happen. I want to collaborate with Andy Mineo. I
Okay.
feel like, and I got a chance to meet him. I got a chance to show him some stuff, and it was great, but nothing really came out of it. Um, and I've always been a fan of his music, right? But when I got to meet him in person, and we got to do like a Bible study together, and I got to see his heart, that made it even more like I really want to work with this guy because now I know it's more than just music with him. You know what I mean? Like he lives what he says. So to me, I was like, hey, that like I honor that so much that I'm like I want to work with him even more.
Amazing.
So when you see that Niko
Yeah,
and Andyminio collab, I said it here first.
exactly. Exactly. But Premier Gospel gave you that exclusive, guys. Um, so, can you also tell me who some of your favorite artists are in the Latin gospel space right now? Because there's a lot of amazing upcoming people. I feel like there's a very big scene of people who don't get the recognition they deserve by any means.
So for the Latin gospel, I think, I mean, he's not really Latin gospel, but Danny Goki is really
Yeah.
killing it in the Spanish stuff. Evan Kraft has been killing it for years in the Latin industry.
Yeah. OG.
Yeah, but Danny Goki really surprised me because I've been seeing some of his stuff, and I'm friends with his videographer, so seeing some of his like just the way he works and the Latin stuff that's coming out and his voice is just out of this world.
Yeah, he's doing a lot. He's really doing a lot. In the best way though, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are there any other like English speaking Christian artists that you enjoy listening to or that you think people should get on?
So that's funny because people always ask me like, hey, what is your favorite like urban music and whatever, right? So if you really look at my playlist, the only thing you see is Maverick City, Chandler Moore, yeah, Dante Bowe, like that's really it. It's like all English worship, elevation. So it's really, I think that's going back to me writing worship. I think that's where it's really connecting with me because that's
Okay.
what I play like
Mm,
24/7. You
yeah.
know, so it's weird because I make urban music,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm like what really feeds me and what really connects to me is like that worship, especially that worship that kind of has like a little urban feeling to it. I love it.
So the last question that I had for you was what's next for Niko MA? Tour,
So
more
I'm
album?
working. I do want to do a tour. Um, but right, the way that the world is set up right now,
It's moving mad, honestly.
it
Moving mad.
was there's. I mean, when I released my previous well, so 2019, I was supposed to go. We were already setting up the tour for 2020. We had like half of the year or 7 months where every month we were in a different country. Like it was already set up. And then the whole world just shut down. So we were like, what in the world? And then now it's just like it's reopening, but a lot of venues are having issues and going in and out of the US. To me, it's just like,
Yeah, it's a lot of question marks, isn't it?
yeah.
A lot of
Um,
question marks.
so I'm not sure. I mean, I'm starting to work on a lot of worship songs. Not sure if that turns into an album or that turns into God connecting me with some big worship bands that I can just pitch the songs to, and then next thing you know, yeah, you already know.
I see you. I can see you already. I know what your plan
Yes,
is, and
I
it will
receive
happen.
it. I
It will
receive
happen. It will
it.
happen by the grace of God.
Amen.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you would like to add, or that you would just like to tell our listeners, just to encourage them?
Yeah, I just want to encourage people, especially whatever it is that you want to do in life. It takes dedication, and it takes just like when you plant a seed, you can't expect it to grow the next morning. You got to keep watering it. So, regardless if we're talking about your relationship with God, regardless if we're talking about your relationship with your friends, spouse, or just your career, whatever it is that you want to do, just keep watering it. Eventually, that plant will give seed. That seed will give plant.
Premier Gospel.